Hey, so I've been speaking with a lot of business owners in the apparel and footwear direct-to-consumer e-commerce space, and the most common question that I get is how do I scale my apparel brand and create revenue? And a lot of these founders are trying to go from like zero to the first 10, 20, 30, even 50K per month. And we've had a lot of experience scaling more established brands, people who are doing like 7 figures, trying to go to 8 figures in terms of revenue from their apparel brand. So we work with companies like Taft Clothing, UFOs, Bionic on their paid campaigns. And so the three questions that we always ask, no matter what the brand is and where they're coming from, and where they're trying to go to, in terms of scaling, and one of the unique challenges of an apparel or a footwear brand when they're trying to scale is that the more money they put into advertising, the more revenue they generate, but the less profit that they make. So there's a diminishing return when it comes to trying to scale at a fast pace. And this is true for a lot of businesses, but also because of the kind of unique characteristics of an apparel or a footwear brand, because they have like a lot of fixed costs. It makes the challenge even more difficult, right? So you have a consulting or a service, again, scaling is still hard, but it's a different kind of challenge. So anyways, long story short, the main three questions that I always ask a founder in this space, and this is true if you're selling a product and you're selling like a lot of units and you have like variety of like color and sizes, right? Again, if you sell like supplements, this is different, because in clothing, for one piece of clothing you have to have like several different colors and like sizes, right? So it's a unique challenge for apparel brands. So the three questions I always ask, number one is, what is your average order value? Right? The reason why this is important is because if you have a too low of an average order value, AOV, in 2024 and beyond, if it's less than on a very low end, like $60 to $80, ideally you want your AOV to be like more than $100, right? It's really hard to scale because a lot of the fixed cost get eaten into your profit, right? So if you don't have a high AOV, the more sales you make, actually the less profit on a percentage basis you make, right? So the first thing you want to do is you want to try to get your average order value at the very bare minimum above $50 to $60, especially if you're in e-com in 2024 and beyond. That's the first thing. And how do you do that? There's a few different ways. Probably the easiest, the most common way to do that is by selling a bundle. So like if you ever bought anything online before, you land on the site and they say, hey, if you spent more than $80 or $100, you get free shipping, right? So that's one way to increase the AOV of your purchases, so that you can actually create more profit and then put it back into scaling. So that's the first thing. So anything that's below, like if you have a product that sells for it's like a single. I was speaking with a founder last week who does really well on Amazon. He sells like fruit juices, like 100% organic fruit juices, and they do like a lot of single case sales, and he was trying to like replicate that kind of growth on Shopify, like its own store. And we took a look at the number, and it just doesn't work for his own store, because one, Amazon handles all of the distribution, so the cost of shipping is low, and two, Amazon already have a lot of trust. So the conversion rate on Amazon, if you have good reviews and good product packaging online on the store, the conversion rate is very high, right? But if you're trying to scale your own store where you are not dependent on Amazon, selling single cases are not going to be profitable. And I think his case is like $25 a case, right? So what the first thing we kind of like recommended here that he does is look at how do we bundle or how do we sell multiple cases with included free shipping. Okay, so that's the first I guess advice. The second piece of advice that we give to a lot of founders in apparel is the era of easy scaling is over, right? A lot of funding, like VC funding for direct-to-consumer e-commerce, have collapsed by 94 or 96% in the last 2 years, which means that the entire funding available market for funding from VC, private equity VC money, have collapsed more than 90%. And SBA, which is Small Business Administration loans, have tripled. And what that means is capital is really difficult to come by nowadays. And companies, the age of scaling at all cost is over. What works and what needs to work today is scaling with profit, right? You need to understand the metrics of scaling a profitable brand, where the more revenue you grow, the more profit it unlocks. Whereas in the last 3 to 4 years, I would say since COVID, because of the abundance of capital and money in the market, like a lot of brands have not been profitable. If you look at the price chart of some of the biggest e-com darling like Allbirds or Peloton, it looks like a shitcoin graph, right? So what does that mean, right? What it means is today you can't just throw a bunch of money into paid advertising and then have a product that just looks cool, and that like hoping that's actually going to make you're going to make a lot of money for the brand, right? What we're noticing working today really well, especially with the like collapse in funding and the everyone's calling for a recession or even a collapse in the market. What's working today is your apparel brand has to have like a unique functionality beyond just looking cool, right? That age is kind of over right now, where you can just throw what kind of like a cool design, unique looking piece of clothing or footwear and it's gonna sell like hotcakes. That era is over, right? So what we're seeing, and I'll give you an example, right? A couple. What we're seeing is clothing pieces, whether it's your shirts or your shoes or even accessories. Those that are doing well and growing yes, they look good, but they have a unique function or benefits to it. So with UFOs and Vionic, which are a couple of our like 8-figure brands, the way that they've been able to grow really quickly and profitably is by having like uniquely designed, looks good, but also focus on a target market of like say runners or like trainers who are buying it for the looks, but also buying it for like having like the best unique technology when it comes to like arch support, or helping with like a specific function or like a sports, right? One example though is what I'm wearing right now, which is Built Basics, BYLT. I've been diving into this brand a little bit. I'm pretty sure it's a multiple 8-figure brand that sells like they have a woman's clothing line now, but it really got popular with like kind of the young millennial tech workers, internet marketers, tech people in the younger side, and their main value proposition is what is it? I forget the tagline, but it's like basic clothing, premium basic, right? And that's a bit of a dichotomy, isn't it? But it's taken off really well because they focus on, yes, they look good physically. Like I only wear Built Basics shirts and pants now, and my wife tried to like shop for other brand for me, and she's like, you should just wear Built. So it looks good, but the reason why I've spent probably at this point like $2,500 in the last year or so on my built clothing is because it looks good, but it serves a function where the value proposition of the brand is it's basic, but it's premium, right? And the material does feel premium. So it's not like a Hanes t-shirt from Walmart, right, or Amazon, and the price point reflect that, but it's performance fabric, right? It stretches. There's different, even within the built line, they're separating it from performance, meaning like, if I'm going to the gym, right? Versus like they have an executive line where it kind of target towards, again, executives. And that's worked really well for them, right? So second tip is it has to have an additional function and actual tangible benefit in addition to just looking cool, even feeling cool, right? Or feeling like premium fabric. That play is 2019, 2020, it's kind of played out. So that's the second piece. So the first piece is get your AOV up. Second piece is have an actual functionality in addition to the feel or the look of the piece of apparel, right? And then the last or the third quote unquote piece of advice I would say is for the rest of 2024 and beyond, especially if you're in apparel, what's really key, whether or not you do paid advertising, is you have to work with basically content creator. So some of the brands that we have worked with that have the most traction right now leverage UGC, user generated content, in the advertising to push the brand further. So like nowadays people don't buy specifically unless you are Nike, right? If you're Nike, I'm buying because of the fact that it's Nike, right? It's a $1 trillion brand really. If you're a small independent brand, people aren't gonna buy because of your logo or your slogan, right? People's gonna buy because their friends recommend it or an influencer talks about it and really vouch for it, right? So the third piece that I recommend, especially when you're going to try to go from 0 to like the first 100K, is yes, paid advertising is important, but organic promotion, who else is gonna rep your brand, is really, really key. And it's also a lower cost and it's a bit more forgiving because you're not just giving Facebook $10,000 or Meta or Google or TikTok 10 grand and there's no guarantee that they're gonna be putting that in front of the right audience for you, right? So with UGC, what you can do is you can actually use more of an elbow grease, like your own effort versus paying money, which most companies starting out don't have the money, right? Which is, and you can also be more targeted, right? It takes more effort, but you can actually be targeted about who has, like which creators have the audience that you want, that are fit for your brand, right? And then you can either create a win-win situation for them, or send them free samples, encourage them to talk about it, or actually pay them to actually talk about and review your product in a quote-unquote non-biased way, right? And with this, you can actually target and tailor who you offer this deal to and your product to based on their target demographics. So those would be the 3 tips that I would say that are working and we would give to any brands today. And this applied to 0 to like 6-figure brand to like 8-figure brands trying to get better result from the ad campaign, right? Increase your AOVs, focus and highlight and really talk and really narrow in on the functionality of your product beyond just the look. And then thirdly is to leverage user-generated content, work with influencers, content creators in both your organic content and also your paid channels as well. So hopefully that's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Drop a comment below if you have any questions or you want me to elaborate on anything further. Cheers.